What's up, bitches? This video is an introduction to your differential equations class. The first thing that you're going to learn in this chapter or in your class is the order. The order is basically the maximum derivative that you're going to see in your differential equation, okay? So for example, in an equation like this, we see that y prime prime is basically the most amount of y derived y that you see. So the order is equal to 2 in this equation over here, okay? You don't really care about x because there's always a dependent and independent variable. So whenever you're dealing with an equation like this, just pay attention to the y. Here, the maximum that you see is it's derived twice, so the order is 2. Now, sometimes your professor, he's going to give you an equation like this as a trick question, okay? This over here is just y prime to the power of 4, okay? It's not y prime 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 prime, okay? It's not the same thing. It's just a trick question, okay? The order in this equation is 3 because here y is derived 3 times, okay? So the order here is 3. The next thing that you learn in this chapter is whether an equation is linear or non-linear, okay? There are three things that make an equation non-linear, okay? The first thing is if the derivative is has a power of 2 or 3 or square root of y or literally even y negative 1. Y prime to the power of negative 1. If y or y prime, okay, same thing with y. If y or y prime has a power, then it's non-linear, okay? The second point is if there's like a weird non-linear equation, okay? For example, like sine of y or cos of y or e of y. Same thing with y primes, okay? When there's weird non-linear equations that are messing with y, that makes it non-linear. And the last thing is if y is being multiplied with y prime or y prime multiplied with y prime prime, okay? Everything else is linear, okay? If in your equation you find 3 of these, it's non-linear. Otherwise, it's considered linear. So next, this is a typical problem that you're going to get in your first chapter. They're going to give you an equation and they're going to say, oh, verify that if it's linear. And in this question, it's asking you to match it with the general form. This over here is your general form. Basically, you just have to separate all the y derivatives like this and equals to whatever, okay? It doesn't matter what you're doing with the x, just as long as all the y derivatives are like properly separated. That way you could like, well, this is the general equation. You just have to match it with this, okay? Now, it depends whether you're doing du over dv or dv over du. This depends whether you're verifying in u or in v, okay? So when they say in u, the u has to be on top over here. And when they're saying in v, they're talking about this one over here, okay? It's just you're like considering u and v if they're dependent or independent variables, okay? So let's begin with evaluating this in u, okay? Therefore, you have to look for du over dv. Here we have dv and over here du, okay? So I'm just going to divide both sides of the equations with dv. 0 divided by dv, nothing happens, okay? So u times 1 plus du over dv, u plus uv negative u e of u equals 0. Now I'm just going to match it with the equation. I'm going to consider this as u prime, okay? So I'm writing u prime, u plus uv negative u e of u plus u equals 0. All right, so we could see that this equation is non-linear because there's this wonky equation over here, e of u. So that automatically makes it non-linear. And you're also multiplying u prime with u, so it's just non-linear. Next, when we want to evaluate it in v, basically we need to consider, you need to consider dv over du, all right? So we already have a dv over here. I'm going to divide both sides by du, okay? 0 divided by du, nothing happens. So you got u times dv divided by du plus du divided by du is just 1. So I'm just going to remove the parentheses. All right, now I'm going to write this as v prime. So you have u times v prime plus I'm going to factorize this over here. And I'm going to send this to the other side equals u e of u. All right, now we're considering u sorry, we're considering v as the dependent variable, okay? And there's nothing wonky happening with v, okay? There's u times v of prime. As long as it's not this, it's still considered linear, so this doesn't matter. And over here is everything looks good. Even though over here there's u times e of u, you're considering u as the independent variable, so it doesn't really matter. When we say, oh, you have to evaluate in v, just pay attention to the v. It doesn't matter what's happening with the u. So since there's none of the three criteria are being met here, you could consider this equation as linear. All right, and this is the last type of problem that you're going to get for your first chapter. Whenever it says, oh, just verify that the function is an explicit solution, literally just, this is your main equation, and you have to just replace y with this, and that's it. It's super easy. So in this equation, you just have to check y. You already have y. You need to find y. You need to find y prime and y prime prime. Okay. So I'm just gonna skip everything. This is just Cal 1. All right. So when you derive this y once and twice, you should get these two equations over here. I'm just gonna skip it because it's just Cal 1. It's super easy. You just do the whatchamacallit, what's that rule? This shit. You just do this shit and you just plug, and the rest is just easy. You just have to plug it in, okay? So y prime prime is just this over here. So you're gonna write 5e3x goes to x. Then negative 6 times y prime. So 6 times all of this. Plus 13y. That's just this. 13 e of 3x cos of 2x. And equals to 0. And the rest is just algebra. Now, I'm not gonna deal with all of this because whenever it says verify, like literally 99% of the time, this equation should be true. It's just your professor's checking if you know what you're doing, okay? So once you distribute the 6 over here and you add and subtract all the cos and sine 2x's, you're gonna get 0. And that's it. That's your first chapter.